Hello and welcome to this episode of Be Bougie, Be Hippie. Hold on, let me take my shoes off here. Oh my goodness, it feels good to be down here. I switched my office around so that I can now do video podcasts. So it just feels nice to have a pretty background. I put up some pictures that are very important to me. And I'm here, and it is a reason to put on some makeup. But I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here listening or watching this episode. Today, what I want to talk about is wealth. And wealth, in the last episode, we had talked about time and giving yourself grace. And if you haven't watched or listened to that episode yet, go ahead and listen to that. That's episode 38, season 2. But today, what I want to talk about is wealth, and if there was a formula for wealth. And first, I guess, before talking about a formula for wealth, when I talk about wealth, I talk about whole or encompassing every aspect of our being, because I truly, truly believe from my personal life experience, I have been in situations where I have had it all, in quotes, as in the material things. But not having my mental health. And then I've also been in places where I have had my mental health, my physical health, but had not a dime to my name when I was homeless. And here now, 13 years sober, owning businesses, having successful businesses, having businesses that have failed, having partnerships that didn't work out, to realizing that, Jimmy, my husband, is my business partner. He's my life partner. Like, we work really well together, and we enjoy amazing people who are so heart-centered and heart-led, and we love working with people like that. But what I'm saying is, when I talk about wealth, it's everything. So if there was a formula for wealth, this is what it would be. This is what wealth, sustainable whole wealth, how to get there, what it looks like. And I know when I say wealth, everyone's like, yeah, give me the money. Like, show me the money. I want the money. Yes, money is, the energy of money is powerful. But in order to get to the energy of money, or what type of relationship you want to have with money, these parts of the formula that I'm going to explain have to come first. And we can even sit here and go, okay, but what about, the multi-million dollar, the billionaire who has the money? And okay, but does he have these other parts of his life? And I am so happy that more and more millionaires and billionaires are in the business of not only wealth, but they're realizing that wealth is how they're serving, and now what a lot of people are figuring out is that wealth in the form of longevity gives you more wealth. So before I get into all of that, I'm not saying that every billionaire out there is miserable. I'm saying that there are examples of people who have their health, but they can't figure out the money aspect of wealth, or the people who have the money wealth, but can't figure out the relationship aspect of wealth. So here is my formula for building overall wealth in all aspects of your life. Take a deep breath. Let's start with that. Take a deep heart-centered breath, maybe bringing a smile to your face, relaxing your shoulders, letting out any stale air, old thoughts, maybe preconceived judgments. Let it all go. Let it all go. Shake. I love shaking my hands, my arms. It's a great energy release this morning. If you were a fly on the wall watching me work out in the basement, I think you join in because I will be lifting weights. And if I start to feel tension in my body or if my mind goes down an alleyway that I'm like, nah, we're not going there, I will stop and shake and jump and move my body around. And sometimes I get caught up doing that, like 2 minutes in the middle of a workout. And then I'm like, oh crap, what did they? Okay, yeah, okay, we're back and we're doing the sets. But it is such a freeing way to just get some tension out. And energetically, we are in a huge shift right now. So if you're feeling tense, if you're having this sense of, I don't know where I am or what I'm doing. It feels a little unclear, but I know that I have the power of choice. I have the power to choose which path or fork in the road to go down. Then you're exactly where you're meant to be. That's been a huge download that I've had lately. And my guides are like, just ride this out. This is definitely a part of the unraveling, the awakening, the coming into full alignment with your highest and best. So I will no longer hold back what this formula is. If you are a pen and paper type of person, I would start with this. Life fulfillment formula for whole wealth. It's got to start with your mental health wealth, then your physical being wealth, then your spiritual wealth. Then we go into relationship wealth, and then receiving and giving or money wealth. So let's start with mental health. And like I said, I'll give examples that I have from my own life. And if you do have little ears listening, this may not be the podcast episode to listen with around babies, because I am going to share a little bit of my story. But mental health was always felt like scarce in my life. And I will preface that by saying I come from a family where my father has his doctorate in theology. He was a physical fitness trainer in the military. He trained the battalions who would go out to war. And brilliant man, lots of physical health, but very kept to himself, extremely quiet, didn't express his emotions. Hey, it's me, Eileen. I wanted to interrupt this episode really quick to invite you to my free webinar. It's called Unstuck. This is a 1-hour masterclass. We are going to help you get intentional in creating a life you love. We'll talk about different practices, how to make vows to yourself to make these practices actually stick. We'll talk about choosing a goal, understanding your goal, raising your vibe so that you match the frequency of that which you desire. We'll go through journaling and different routines that feel soul quenching for you. So go ahead and click the link below. You can join every third Thursday of the month. Every masterclass will be a little bit different. And I promise if you keep coming back, you are going to gain more clarity, more insight, and more aligned direction on creating a life you love. I can't wait to see you there. So growing up in a family where my mother was very educated, I don't exactly know what the level of it is, but she had her own private practice and she's a therapist, psychologist, psychologist. But mental health and mental well-being was not top tier in my household. And it led to a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of shrinking, a lot of holding back. The word fear comes up for me in that sense. And then growing up, trying to cope, finding different ways of keeping my physical body as best in health as I could with the tools that I had, it just felt like I was grasping at parts of it. So I went through and then I dealt with eating disorders all from a very young age up until I got sober when I was 25. So probably from the age 11 to 25, I really struggled with body dysmorphia, with anorexia, with bulimia. And these are all, I'm sharing this because I can relate. I feel like God, the universe, like put my soul through all of these really not great situations and emotions and feelings and valleys and peaks to be able to share and to show that, healing is possible and whole wealth is possible too. But from somebody who's had a little bit of all of it in different aspects and then has found how to bring it together and continue it in alignment with one another and in a beautiful balance, I am definitely qualified to speak on this. So, mental health. And then I got to that point, and I talk about this very openly, is, October 9th, 2011 was the day that I was ready to exit this earth. And I thought that that was the only solution. I had hit such a low that I just felt like there was nothing I could physically do anymore, whether it was drugs or drink enough or get thin enough or work out enough or be around healthy people and successful people enough. Like there was nothing that felt like I could do as a solution. And so that is where my mental health journey really kicked off. And it's beautiful because that is also truly where my spiritual journey and my physical journey, in a way that feels like it sticks. We talk about this is a really easy one for so many people to relate to, that they're like, if I am the smaller dress size, I'll be happier. If I have the relationship, I'll be happier. If I have this number in my bank account, I'll be more at peace and everything will be fine. And the reality of it is, there is a way to stack your wealth to make it last, to make it feel good, to make it really feel grounded and like it is who you are vibrationally. And so mental health has to be number one, because if you don't have your peace of mind, if you do not have your sense of self, if you do not understand how you tick, and side note here, I am not saying you have to have this all figured out. I'm saying if you are on a journey of self awareness, if you are on a journey of healing what triggers you, what holds you back, what makes you cry, if you are so aware of the types of relationships that keep showing up in your life that just piss you off or trigger you, and you're like, I need a solution for this, that is forward moving motion. That is taking responsibility, and that is beginning to grow wealth within your mental health, the realm, the section, the segment of this wealth building. So taking care of your mental health has to come first, because if you don't have you, then it's really hard to balance all the other pieces of life. And I think we all know this. We all went through COVID. We are here now. That was a great example. My guides told me right before it started that we were going to go through something called the Great Pause. That's how I saw it and heard it. And when it came, it was so beautiful, because I, in a sense, not specifically, but I had a broader perspective of what was going on. And I love what came out of it, is that mental health is not such a stigma now. Dealing with depression, anxiety, even drug addiction, alcoholism, it's not looked down upon like it used to be. So we are doing the right thing as a collective, in that sense, that we are honoring that our mental health is it's everything. It is so prevalent. Our mental health has to come first in order to build wealth. You need to know where you stand. That is the foundation, the cornerstone of 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 this life experience. And then shortly after, for me, when I made the phone call and I decided my sobriety date is 10/10/11, 2011, that is the first day of my, since I can remember in my life from that point, that I did not use a drink, a drug, or a substitute to fill a void or to fill uncomfortable, strong emotions that I was happening. And so that catapulted me very, very quickly into, oh my God, these feelings are so uncomfortable and I am stark raving sober. I remember going to one of my first meetings and somebody came up to me and they said, how long have you been sober? And I think it was something over a week. And they looked at me and they said, this is as sober as you'll ever be. So take responsibility for yourself and how you're feeling. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, damn, you can't get more sober than I was in that moment. And that was the first time that it hit me. So maybe, maybe that's where you're starting. Maybe your mental health is taking away substances or it's taking away toxic, um, you know, um, relationships, or maybe you watch the news all the time, or maybe you gossip, like whatever it is to get you in more clarity, to get you in a clearer headspace, to make you feel like when you put your head down on the pillow at night, you can say, I felt that all. I remember that all. Like that was like I was here for it. I was present for it. And good, bad, ugly, it's making the decision to allow that, the uncomfortability of it. But for me, after the mental health aspect, when I was like, I got to get my mental health under control, drinking and drugging was no longer an option. I quickly started to run, and I ran long, long distances, and I needed it. And when I was feeling emotions, or if I was feeling ick from the past, or I call it an emotional hot flash of like just judgment and fear and self-loathing, like if any uncomfortable feeling came up, I quickly found the solution of moving my body. And this is where I had said earlier how, we can grasp for things, but if we're not doing it with the right intentions or aligned intentions for our highest and best, it's not going to stick. So I kept I was running, and then I started lifting because I knew I needed to run, but I needed to do something that would support my muscles so that I could run as far as I was running. And where was I running? I was running to AA meetings, and some of these meetings were up to 10 miles away. And then because I was not at the point in my wealth journey yet where I trusted relationships, where I had my guard down, where I was able to have relationships with other people, I used it as a time or I was afraid to ask for help. So I would run the 10 miles to the meeting and the 10 miles back, or the 4 miles to the meeting, 4 miles. Like it was all different meetings and different times. But that physical aspect of it then started to change my outward appearance. But in the beginning, I didn't go into running because I wanted to build muscle or I was unhappy with the way I looked. Like that was a given. I just didn't love myself. So it was really easy for me to pick apart what I didn't value who I was. So I didn't value my meat suit, my body that I was in. I didn't value what I did with my time. And I certainly was not in a place where I valued myself enough where I felt confident in having relationships. I didn't even know how to have a healthy relationship with a friend, with an older woman, aka mom figure, with a man, like forget it, didn't like men, didn't trust men. And people my age scared me because I felt like they had the secret. They knew how to do this life thing, and I was the only person who wasn't in the room when the world was given the memo. that, this is how you do life. And so that's how I felt for a long time. So I kept myself separate from other people, but I was shedding this uncomfortable energy, and I knew that this running and breathing of fresh air and sweating, detoxing, moving my body, running to the point where I was tired, where the reward felt like a peaceful night's rest. Like that was enough for me because I was in alignment. I was building wealth in my mental and my physical health. And then from there, that's when my runs became this form of meditation where even 13 years ago, I wouldn't have really even pinged it or tagged it as the word meditation. It was reflection on what I had just heard in the meeting, or on my way to the meetings, it was feeling the sun on my body and just being so grateful and being playful with myself of like, oh God, you ran 18 yesterday. You think you got another 12 in you today? And like, I would talk to these parts of me and go, yeah, you've got this. And then what I realized I was doing was I was tapping into my higher self. I was tapping into the encouragement of God, of the universe. And while I was running and my mind was free, I became an open vessel and a channel to hear the expansion and the positivity and the love that was flowing into me from the universe. So then, after my mental health became my priority and my physical health felt necessary to support my mental health, then the beautiful thing happened that my spiritual health came to me because I was open, because I was available, because I had put myself in a position to quiet my mind and to be in receiving mode. And so my spirituality became number one. I really started to, instead of just going through the actions, because I was told you should hit your knees every morning. And what that means is, you should physically make your body surrender to a power greater than you. And a good way to do that is by hitting your knees. And I would put my hands up in receiving mode. And, I had a prayer that I would say every single morning. And I still say it, thank you for today. Please keep the desire for a drink, a drug, and eventually I added, and a cigarette out of my heart, body, mind, and soul. Please give me the willingness to do your will. And that for me felt, it like flew out of me, and it just felt like honey coming up and out of my voice, my words. Like it felt like it was soothing and cleansing my body when I would say that. And notice too, at this point, my spirituality coming from somebody who, my dad has his doctorate in theology. My mom went through this wild transition. I don't even know what we did. I felt like we were in a different type of Christian church every week, and religion was confusing to me, and I felt like it was not giving the entire story. There are parts of it that I loved, but I feel like the influence or the people that I had teaching me about it weren't in a position to teach me because I knew who they were behind closed doors. And so it just didn't make sense to me. But what did feel good was this quiet little light that I felt within my being, that I felt within my body. And so when I started to tap into that, my spiritual body, my spirit body, my energy body, I felt a sense of confidence and support that I never in my entire life had felt, ever. And so stacking these forms of wealth on top of each other to make it last, this is where my spiritual wealth came in. My spiritual body became, I started to really recognize and understand that I am a spiritual being having a physical experience, because little things too would happen where I would I would think about on one of my runs. I was going to, it's called the Looney Noonie in Norwood, Norwood, Massachusetts. And I was thinking about coincidences. And here I am, I'm new to AA. And little did I know that, one of the things that people in AA say a lot are like, there are no coincidences. But I'm thinking about coincidences on my, however many mile run I was on. And I get to the meeting and the topic is there are no coincidences. And we start dissecting it as a whole, as a group, and people are sharing on it and what that means for them. And what I'm realizing is now that the universe, God, is starting to speak to me, and it, he, they, them, higher me, whatever, this divine source is talking to me through other people. And so now, because I have this spiritual trust with a power greater than myself, I'm starting to hear the conversations I'm having within on the outside with people. It is now opening the door to the wealth of relationships. Because if I was trusting it in myself and now I'm hearing other people talk about it, that for me was a very powerful sign that I am safe to go up to that person and I am safe to talk to that person, because their stream of thought, their stream of consciousness, what they are talking about in this meeting is the exact stream of consciousness, stream of thought that I was contemplating and having with my higher power only minutes before on my run here. And so from my spiritual wealth came relationship wealth. And there's two parts to this. There's many, many parts, but we're going to keep it to two here in the relationship wealth aspect of it. Is that I had just mentioned the, remembering about talking about coincidences with myself. And in that moment of choosing whether I was going to trust my spirituality, my higher power, that was the segue to opening up to relationships with people. There was this little part of me that had to believe and trust in myself in order to do that too. And this comes, it's so, for me, it was so quiet. It was so nurturing. It was so caring. It kind of felt like what the word yes would feel like in your body. Like it was a little ping of white light. Like it's like the light bulb went on and it was like, you're safe. Yes, it's okay. Move forward. Keep going. Try this. And so I honoring myself and loving myself enough to be able to hear that part of me is what gave me the okay to open up to another person. So the relationship wealth side of it is loving yourself so you can love others. That is the whole download that I got when starting Be Bougie. Love yourself, be bougie, be a little loud, be a little badass, take care of yourself, do things unconventionally, like pamper yourself, get loud with your emotions, like be okay being out there. And then to be hippie is, I was thinking, what do hippies do? Like they honor other people, they honor other souls, they honor other life. Like it's more of a like a quiet, a gentle, a very humble giving. So loving others. So be bougie, be hippie. That's where that came from. But the relationships, loving myself, and also going into it where I took relationships very seriously at the beginning, in the point of like, I'm no longer a vampire. I'm no longer a victim. I am no longer going into relationships, and I didn't consciously think this way, but when I had clear mind, body, and heart, I could really understand that do I add value to this person's life? And is this person adding value to me? Or is this simply transactional? Or am I going into this one sided, self centered, going, what can they give to me? And so I had to assess all of that within myself with, is this relationship going to, you know, am I going into this for the right intentions? And so here I am. Yes, I overthink things. Yes, I think a lot. And I do. I talk to myself in this way. And I mean, ask Jimmy, this is how I speak. This is how him and I talk. So I remember going up to, women in AA and finally speaking to women and feeling safe to have these conversations and keeping it simply in that present moment. And that's what the freedom and the wealth of relationships. Do I love myself enough? Do I trust myself enough that I can go into this relationship with little expectations, with pure intentions, with adding value, with feeling their energy and knowing that they have pure intentions with this? All of that came into play because I was so fragile and I was so aware and I was stripped of absolutely everything. So I was starting from scratch again in all aspects of wealth. And then the beautiful thing happens when we get comfortable with relationships, and we realize that relationships are ways to trigger growth, to trigger joy, to trigger remembering where our soul comes from and our soul tribe and our purpose here, and to deepen our experience of love and a sense of community. Like, relationships are so, so important. And I think for a long time, I put them so high up on a pedestal that it was a really long time. Like, my relationship with myself became great. Like, I remember having moments of like, I'm alone right now, but I'm not lonely. Like, this is a really cool feeling. Or just excited to um, go and do something that I purely enjoyed, like a new workout, and not oh, who's going to be there to entertain me or keep me company. Like, so the relationship with my higher power and then the relationship with myself was what led me to relationships with other people. And it took me trauma therapy. It took me realizing that I had a lot of shadow work to do. And I valued friendship so much that I was afraid of it for a very long time because I didn't want to let somebody down. I felt like in the past, with all of the gunk and all of my unhealed health, mental health, that I didn't know how to do friendships in an authentic, clear way. And so for a long time, I kind of tiptoed around friendships, and I wasn't interested in intimate relationships or anything like that. And then that's where, when I started to trust in other women and I started to come to a comfortable dynamic with men, and realizing that, we are, even though men and women are very different, we are very much alike, and we're all human beings that have real feelings and real blocks and real happiness and real joy and real stuff. And so when I could start to see men like that, that's when Jimmy came into my life. That is when Jimmy came into my life. And it was really special. It was a cool day. And we talk about this. We were just talking about this the other day too, on our way to New York City. And I was saying how our souls have an agreement before we come down into this earth together. Like, when you have a soulmate or your soul tribe or your soul family or your soul cluster, whatever you want to call it, that you're like, okay, my call to you that's going to make you remember who I am. Say we're like up here in the realm with all the souls, and you're like, okay, when I hear your laugh, it's going to spark a remembrance within me, and I'm going to know that that's one of my people. And so this is kind of a cool thing too. Think about the people in your life and think about when you think of them, what is the first thing that naturally comes to mind, or an emotion or sense that you feel? That is probably the agreement that your souls had for remembering one another. And this is also a fun exercise to do with your best friends or with your spouse or your partner, asking them, what is it about me that you recognize when you saw me for the first time? And so Jimmy said it was my laugh, and I said it was his voice. Like, something about his voice is so soothing to me. But again, it's stacking these versions of wealth on top of each other, that if you don't have your mental health, you're not in a space to be able to actually grasp, a physical health regimen that you're going to stick with for the right intentions, which then leads you to being a clear vessel so that you can have a spiritual relationship or be a clear conduit. That's one of those woo-woo words that I heard years ago, that I like to stay away from because I feel like they sound just, I don't know, yuppity. But then it goes into relationships, and relationships are the meat of all forms of wealth. And this leads me to the wealth that so many of us are after. And it's kind of one of those things, like, I want to skip to the good part. And there's so much energy around money beliefs, and there's so much subconscious programming that is tied to money. Money is the energy exchange in this world, but I think what's happening within this shift, this awakening, is that we are really starting to value other energy exchanges as much, if not more, than money. And what I have to say to that is, like, thank the stars. Thank you, God, for that, because we've seen it. Like, we can't just be this money hungry, consuming society that worships this energy exchange in the form of a paper bill. That is not what we're searching for. So when we have the wealth and the health of relationships, we can see how we interact with people, how people interact with us. And it's really a compass to how and what lights us up and how to serving other people. And this idea of wealth in the form of finances comes first in the form of, how can you serve? How can you give back? How can you help others? How can you bring value, add value to the relationships that you have in your life? And I don't know where along my entrepreneurial, road, I've heard many people talk on this, but for me, stacking wealth and being in alignment with my highest and best and with abundance had to come last, after all of these other forms of wealth that we've been talking about. So if you're at this place where you feel like you're working on your mental health, your physical health has followed, like, you value your vessel, your meat suit, you're not just doing it for an outcome and not bringing your mental well-being with you. If you are in a place where you're really enjoying a relationship with an energy higher than yourself, whatever that looks like for you, if you find yourself working on the relationships in your life, adding value to relationships in your life, focusing on the ones that fuel you and that you fuel back, and this can be a place where it takes, each one of these has their own, right, roadblocks and limiting beliefs that we have to just let go of. Like, there's so much work that can be done in each level of these, but the beautiful thing is, you don't have to have each level figured out in order to go to this next level of wealth. It's just having an awareness and feeling like, okay, I am here to wholly feel wealth in every aspect of it. So then you come to this money, how can I serve? And then a beautiful part of serving is also being able to receive, because I have seen so many people, and I myself have been in this place where it feels good to give, it feels good to serve, it feels good to help others. And if we are not receiving, which I also call, when you exhale, go ahead, do it now. Yeah. You eventually have to inhale. And that is if you give your heart, if you give your all, if you give the world, an easier way to do something, if you give the world value, you eventually have to also inhale. You have to receive. And that is the part of wealth. It's a beautiful exchange, all of this. And that's that money exchange. It's that energy exchange. So I'm sure you've heard people say before, the fastest way to financial wealth is by working on yourself. You put energy, time, money into growing who you are, into expanding who you are as a person, and you will see that come back to you in the form of money. And it took me so long. I was so against this, and I had thought I worked on all of my money blocks, and I'm like, why the hell am I so against the idea of receiving fully what it is? Because giving value felt really good. Giving value felt really, really good. And for me, it came back to, okay, I have to take this one specific aspect of my life. So for you, wherever you are in this stack, in this stack of mental, physical, spiritual, relationship with others / relationship with yourself, and then money, wealth, where in it do you recognize your blocks? And that's where you're supposed to start. And then you take a hard, honest look at the other forms of wealth in your life and see, what have I moved through? What have I healed? Where do I need to do more work? Because if I'm staring at, we're going to use the money. If I'm staring at the money block in my life, and I'm staring at the money block, and I'm analyzing the money block, and I'm going, okay, why? Just come on, just give me more money, make it more money, make me of more value, make me energetically a vibrational match to, a $3,000 client. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, that's when affirmations, that's when, visualization doesn't work if we're only looking at that one board and banging our heads up against. We have to look at these other aspects in our life, because those, where we have limiting beliefs and blocks and unhealed, unresolved trauma, whatever you want to call it, in your life, that is the direct path to money issues. So if you're having money issues, another way to put this, if you feel like money issues are your issue, they're probably actually not your issue. What your issue is it's either in your relationships, it's within your energy or your spiritual body, it's within your physical body, or it's within your mental health. And so in order to release the blocks from from a specific place in your life, you have to look at the other. And that's why I say they're stacked on top of one another. And for me, this is the formula, and this is the way that I have received wealth in all aspects of it. They all go together. You are a whole body, mind, body, spirit. You have so many different levels and dimensions to you that if you're looking to heal, if you're looking to create more wealth in your life, looking at the other avenues of wealth in your life are going to help you resolve, find peace and clarity and healing and expansion in that level. of it. So this was a little bit longer of a podcast episode, but I hope that you enjoyed this. If you like this episode, please, please, please just take a second, leave a 5-star review, leave a comment, a positive comment, and share this podcast episode with a friend that you think would value what we talked about today. Also, I have a free masterclass called Unstuck. It is every Thursday of the month. It is going to be February 20th at 7 o'clock. This is a virtual event. So if you are interested, you can find me on Instagram at eileen.decell and just DM me class and I will send you over the Google Meet link. We're also figuring out the behind the scenes. Steph is absolutely amazing. As I'm recording this podcast right now, she is working on the links and all the mamma jamma, that, the behind the scenes stuff to get that set up. But in the meantime, you are loved, you are supported, you are so worth it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.